Okay. Um, one thing I wanted to talk about before we talked about anything else is I thought, Lauren, I think you brought it up the last time, was the idea of continuing conversation. And I think it's a really good idea because I've just, for me, I've really enjoyed it, and it's keeping me in this world of thinking about children and education. But I was thinking that, like, oh, there's a lot of people who have come, but they don't take part in it. Like, you don't see them, they don't make themselves visible or whatever. And when I see this should be a conversation, and in order to be a conversation, you have to really be there. It's not really just a watching something. I mean, it's not like if I'm going into a school and doing professional development, it's very different. So I think that that's one of the things I'm going to say if we continue is, like, if you would like to really take part in the conversation. And the other thing I was thinking of was I was thinking about Vivian Gusson Paley, and I thought it might be interesting to kind of continue, but focusing on her writing as a jumping off point. Not necessarily that's all, but as a jumping off point, just as my book was sort of a jumping off point. And I sort of picked out, I don't know if you've read all of these. I didn't read all of them, but I read some of them. So the four that one, two, three, I think it was five that I did was Wally's. I thought maybe to start with Wally's stories because that's her first book. And then Boys and Girls, Superheroes in the Doll Center, because that seemed to be a topic that people seemed to be a hot topic. And The Boy on the Beach, Building Community Through Play. And then White Teacher there's a new edition with a new preface to it. And The Girl with the Brown Crayon. I don't know what you think about that, but I thought they were all short books. None of them are long books. They're all short books. But Ron, who's not here today because he has a school function, but he was saying that I forgot the name of the woman who, remember he talked about this woman who he was looking for, and he finally found her. He said that if we did that, maybe when we talked about The Boy on the Beach, she would take part in the discussion too, because that's a book that she was very involved with. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
I think that could be great. I think she's very powerful in talking about like putting children as main protagonists in their learning. And I think that's a wonderful thing that we forget about these days, unfortunately. And it also made me kind of think about the pedagogy of play, the play things that are happening out of Harvard.
At
Um,
Zero, you mean? At Project Zero?
yeah, they also have like Project Zero. They have some play based things that I think could also be kind of interesting. But it's a different kind of thinking. I don't think it would be good for like the first jumping off point, but I'm trying to think of like, making thinking visible or making learning visible could be a really interesting one too, because I've been thinking about that about, I haven't made too much visible where I am right now as much as I could, like the earlier this year when we were making portraits, we mixed our own skin tones and I wrote a little bit about it, but not anything very deep. And I put up some quotes of children with our self-portraits and some of the examples of skin tones that, in isolation, in addition to the self-portraits. But I started thinking about, so last week we talked about the block area. And so I sort of turned my lens to the block area as well. And I had the children start drawing their structures. And if they wanted to return to them, then they had to talk to each other about what they would do the next day and write about it. And I was like, oh, this is something to document, even if it's not for the parents or for other educators or for me. it was awesome for it was amazing for the children because the children saw the picture of their previous block structure. And the next time they went to the block area, they said, let's make that again, except let's add this and let's do this. And I was like, oh, it's also powerful for children and helping them revisit their own thinking.
Right.
So that's been on my mind, but
Yeah, right. Patricia, have you read any of the Vivian Gusson Paley books? I think you will love them. I think you will just she's just, there's something so real about her, I mean, she's just, it's not um it's not ed talk, it's just real. I
Yeah,
think
you,
yeah.
yeah, you guys have been throwing out all these titles and I've been writing everything down. It's just, this whole, all of these conversations for me have been so, I can't even find the word, but it's just inspiring because I've been working at the same school for many, many years. And I mean, I think I'm close to retiring soon, but it's kind of frustrating to hear all the things that are happening. And yet at our school, we are just so defined by academics, and we are so far from everything that you're saying.
Mm.
So it's really, really frustrating. And I think it was last week, we talked about how great it would be to have administrators actually participate in this so that they can see and they can understand how powerful this really is. I mean, yeah. Hopefully I can start reading some stuff even if I am about to retire. um it's it's difficult for me to listen to all this and do a little of the stuff that you're talking about, but not as much as I would have liked to at the
But
beginning of.
we with children, okay, when we're teaching children, we're really good about recognizing that children need to take baby steps, right? We think about, the zone of proximal development, that we don't jump out of their zone, that we have to think about that and all that. And then we're really hard on ourselves when we don't do that,
Right.
And so maybe to like reorient your thinking about this and think about, like, what's one little thing that I could do that I haven't been doing, that is kind of difficult to do in this school situation here, but I am determined to do this one little thing. And then once you feel good about what you're doing, then you can jump to something new. You can keep jumping a little bit, so
Right.
that you're not hard on yourself about this. I mean, we have, you're dealing with a structure that can be very frustrating. Um, um, but it doesn't mean that you can't make changes. You can make
Yeah.
some changes little by little by little. I mean, each of us are in different places, in different schools, in different situations. When, like Lauren, it sounded to me like when you were first at Harlem Village Academy, the idea was, go for it, girl, see what you could do. Now
mhm.
you're in a school that has a very good reputation. It has a good reputation, and it's a sort of upscale population, pretty much, I think, from what Suzanne told me. Um, um, and you can do some things there, but it's not like it was at Harlem Village Academy. So you are trying to think about, what can I do now? What can I do? What's a thing that I can do? All right. So this making the learning visible is a thing that you could do, So I think that maybe that's just the way to think about it, like, what's one thing I can do now? And then I can build on it. And then I can build on it. And in terms of the Vivian Gusson Paley books, I mean, you will love these books way past your retirement, because it will reaffirm all of the wonderful things that about children and childhood. They're just such wonderful books. I don't know, Trudy, have you read her books?
No, I haven't. And so I'm gonna put them on my Santa list.
Yeah, you have yeah, and Bethany, what about you?
No, I haven't either, but after our meeting last week, me and David and Melissa sat down and said, like, if this ends or even if it doesn't, after Christmas, our plan was to buy one and do it together. So I'm sure like we would all be really interested in doing that. And I was going to talk to Patricia about that too. Like, we have a really supportive admin to what we're doing, but in the beginning, there was a little bit of maybe like hesitation from the families in our school. And Melissa's not here to talk about it, but even just like herself, she found it very frustrating. If you talked to her like a month ago, I mean, she would have said like it's very hard. Her days are very hard. She's trying really hard, whatever. But with the conversations that we've had in this group, and then we've extended on it and had team meetings with David, she took a step back and like reintroduced a lot of the stuff that she had already done, but just in the way that we talked about it or taking like your guys' ideas. And like she's emotional talking about it now because it's so much better. Like she feels so much better about how everything's going, like how seeing the students learning, having staff come in her room and be like, oh, like you're not just playing. I really see what you're doing and like you're doing an amazing job. So like, you know, just power through it. I know it's really hard, but she like just took a little bit each time. And after our conversations, like the focus that we talked about on Tuesdays, and then that really helped it. And like to see, like I said, other staff, other parents are starting to really like get on board.
Right. That's great.
I mean, I think at least for me, I mean, and you know, a lot of the teachers that are here, but that don't turn their cameras on, I do actually see them because our school, we usually see each other every day. So, and it's actually so nice to see them doing all the stuff that we're talking about. I mean, and I, you know, by no means am I saying that, you know, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do any of the things that I'm reading about. I'm actually doing it in spite of administration. And so, yeah, I just want you to know that this has been such a powerful learning experience for me. It's been so impacting. It's you know, and keeping the conversation going. I mean, I think this is the way every time we go back to school on Wednesday, I'm just filled with so many ideas and so many things that I want to do and that I am actually doing in my classroom, and talking to the other teachers about what the conversations that we're having here has been really, really helpful in terms of trying out new things and opening up discussions that are somehow getting to administration.
Can you remind me again of where you teach?
In Bolivia, South America.
Bolivia too. Okay, so I'm going to ask all the other people from Bolivia. Let's see, Erica. Who else is there? Right, Wanda. Is Wanda from Bolivia?
Yeah.
And Laura. Can you all make yourself visible? See if you can all make yourself visible. Okay. I'll tell you why I say that. All right. It's because this is like I don't feel in this group like, let me see, how can I say it? For the since 2003, I've been doing consulting work. All right. And I've been going into schools and, you know, working with teachers and doing some conferences and things like that. All right. But I don't feel like that's what I'm doing here. Here, I'm having a conversation with other educators, and in order to have a conversation, you have to be there, right? You have to be there. You have to have your face there. You have to have your voice there. You have to be a part of it. Otherwise, then I'm in the position of feeling like, well, I have to really teach you stuff, and that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to really talk with you about education. And I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but I'd like to see everybody because it's really hard to kind of have a conversation when we don't really see each other, you know, that I don't know.
And Anna Laura just texted that she's having supper and join us shortly.
Good. Okay.
Well, she's here, but she will make herself visible shortly.
So it's later in Bolivia, right? So it's like,
Yeah, yeah, I think that the daylight savings just threw everybody off, it was 7 initially and then it became 8 and we didn't realize that it became 8.
is
And
it,
so
can I ask you, in Bolivia, is it like in Spain? Like when we were in Spain, I remember dinner wasn't until late at night,
yeah, a lot of people do eat late. Yeah, a lot of people do eat late.
Yeah.
Not me though. I eat at 6, so
Okay. No, because
I'm
I
late
was
for me.
that if that was it. If people are eating dinner, they're eating their dinner now. Well, so anyway, so I was thinking that maybe after we finish, I know we have I'm going to be away, and then the next time that we meet would be December 3rd. I say December 13th, right? Was that it? Or I'm going
Yeah.
here. Um, maybe then we would take a break, and maybe I thought maybe at the end of February start again. Like after like President's Week here, and whatever mid-season. I don't know what other countries have for it, but maybe like the last Tuesday in February start again, and then maybe that would give some of you a chance to get some of the Vivian Gus and Paley books.
Yeah.
Start reading them, because I think you're just going to love them. I really think you're going to absolutely love them. And then we could really keep up a conversation about this. So I was looking at my book again, right? And I said, well, we're supposed to be talking about the Math Center today, all right? And I mean, the thing is that there's math, like we all know that, all over the place. But I wonder, do you all have, like during your choice time, do you have a math center? Do you have math center? Yeah. On in my book on page 119, all right, there's a picture that it said figure 8.1. Zeke put shapes together to look like a boat. He wrote, I took a shape that looked like a triangle. He wrote triangle, CHRIANGGOL, right? Actually, what he did there, doesn't say it in the book, they didn't put it in, he made this at the woodworking center. So it was something that he made at the woodworking center. And at the center, I had like a blank book. It was like a hardcover book with like blank pages. And then after the children made something, they would look at it and they would draw a picture of what they made. And if they wanted to, they would write something about it. And so that's what he wrote about so it wasn't per se at a math center, but he was thinking mathematically, actually. He was thinking about the shapes that he used to create this boat of his. So anyway, the math center, like, I think that it's different in different grades, and it's also different. Do you have the book with you? If you have the book with you, if you look at page 120, so here's Malik, and he's playing hopscotch in my classroom, which drove the custodian up the wall. But Malik was like so active, like he could not stay still. He just was like, he couldn't stay still, all over the place. And I thought this would be a way to get him involved with numbers, would be to put a hopscotch in the classroom in the math center. And it sure as heck did, he loved it, and he was adding up how many jumps he was taking, and the kids were counting. And you can't see the whole, this is just a piece of the picture, but there's somebody sitting there who's counting the jumps that Malik was making. Some of the materials that I used in my math center, I haven't seen in classrooms lately. Like one of the most popular math materials that I had was Cuisenaire rods, but I hardly ever see them anymore. Do you guys have Cuisenaire rods in your classroom?
No.
Lauren, you're muted.
I have them. I haven't introduced them to my classroom yet.
I didn't even totally introduce them. I just put them out and I asked the children to see what they could discover about them. And you don't
Yeah,
even
they're
introduce
at my
them
house.
because they make discoveries with them, they were like a totally popular, like, and they used it not just in the math center, quite truthfully. They took it, we had a sand table and we had in the science center, we had hermit crabs and they took the hermit crabs to the sand table and put the hermit crabs in the sand table and then used the Cuisenaire rods to create structures for the hermit crabs to climb on and under, you know. So I guess a pure math person would not have liked that, but I thought that, they were using it in an interesting way. But I think that they made so many different discoveries with them, and I loved like writing down the things that they did. And the thing is, the thing that I would really emphasize is not to put out too many materials, because that gets overwhelming for children. And also not to think about like the math center as a place to store your math materials. So for example, if you have a math program that uses Unifix cubes, all right? And so let's say you have a whole class set of Unifix cubes. You would not put that class set out in the math center, all right? You would put out just enough for 2 or 3 children, however many children go there, to be able to explore with, but not the whole set, because then it becomes a storage area and not really something that is that is good for them.
I have a sort of tinker space. I call it the tinker table, and it has Legos and it has the pattern blocks, pentominoes, which are one of my favorite materials. And I have the Cuisenaire rods and I haven't brought them to school yet, but I was thinking that would be a good place for them too. What other kinds of materials do you think would be like our dice?
Dice, dominoes.
Mhm.
Dominoes are wonderful. But the thing to think about is when to put something new out, you take something old away. All right. So that's the new thing is fresh. It's not just piled one on top of the other. Playing
And
cards.
you don't necessarily have to actually to show them. You just let them investigate, like
No.
just play.
I'll tell you what, when I added a new material, the way I would do it is, I told you at the beginning that we always have like a meeting before, like a,
Mhm.
you call it a mini lesson or a focus or
Right.
something before. So one of the things I might do is I might put it out on the rug. We're all sitting in a circle. All right, we're sitting in a circle on the rug, put it out on the rug, ask children to take some of it with a partner and just explore a little bit. Take them away and say, what did you notice? What did you discover? All right. It's a very short, not a long thing. What did you discover? What did you notice? I might write it down, what they noticed, but I might not, dependence. And then I'd say that, well, I'm going to put this out in the math center and let's see what kind of incredible things you discover about it at the math center. So they've touched it, they've looked at it, we've talked about it a little bit, and then it goes out to the math center. Okay. So they're introduced to it. Playing cards, that's another thing that they really like. And sometimes I would teach them, taught them a game that was it's funny that my Russian grandfather taught me called Pisha Pesha, and I don't even know what Pisha Pesha means, but it was like one more, one less kind of game, and they really like that. Trying to think what else. Mirrors, if you have unbreakable mirrors, those are really good to have in the math center, because if they're like, let's say they're doing something with what do you call it? Like pattern blocks, pattern shapes. There's a name for it.
Symmetry.
Excuse me.
Symmetry.
Well, then if they do it on top of the mirrors, see what happens if when you do it on top of the mirrors, what are you discovering when you do it on the mirrors, you know? So that, you know, that's something. Something, I don't know if you would call this a math or not. It's more like drawing, but it is symmetry. Every class didn't like it and some classes loved it. We called it finished faces. Like if I would cut out from magazines like half of a face, a human face, an animal face, whatever, and placed it on paper. So I would have like a stack of them, you know, and say, you might, you know, like you look at this face, let's see if you could finish it. What's missing? You know, so that's really looking at the symmetry of the face. It's kind of interesting to see how children do that, you know, and which children actually do look at it and think about the symmetry of it, and which kids don't quite have it yet, you know. And I was sort of working towards getting to understand that. Keys, those are terrific. Keys, so many things you can do with keys, like patterns. What's my rule? Have you ever played that with your kids? What's my rule? That's a really fun game. How do you do it? Okay, so, you know, keys might have like different kind of hole in the middle of it, or a different shape or a different color or whatever. And if you put like a circle, you could even just use a piece of yarn or something and put 2 or 3 keys inside it. All right. That will follow one particular rule. And, you know, like depending upon when you do it, it could be very obvious at the beginning and less obvious as you play it. All right. Then you have a whole stack of keys. Everybody has a stack of their keys. And so like Lauren has a key, and Lauren, can you pick up a key and see if it fits the rule? All right. And Lauren might put her key in the middle, and I might look at it and say, no, that's not the rule. And Lauren's looking at it, but this is silver and mine is silver. Not the rule. You know, the rule is if it has a circle, a little hole in the middle, maybe, you know, so it's, you know, so that's like trying to think about what the rule is. And you don't have to do it with keys. You can play that with attribute blocks, or you can do it with attribute blocks. You can do it with all sorts of things, but keys are fun. You can make patterns with keys, you know, and if you go to, I used to get them. There's a locksmith around the corner from where I live, you know, and I would go to the locksmith and say, if you have any old keys, could I have some? I got tons of them, you know. Real estate dealers have so many keys, you know, that they're happy to get rid of them, you know. So those are kind of interesting things to have, keys, acorns, bottle caps, pennies, coins. Coins are interesting too, because, you know, if you have magnifying glass, you can kind of look closely to see what's on the coins. Popsicle sticks, toothpicks. And in one of the pictures here, I think, let me see if it's in here. Pretty sure, yeah. This was in Bill Fulbrick's class, I think. So the children were building structures using little pieces of clay and toothpicks. It's on page 124. Let's see. And so they were building different three-dimensional shapes. So all you needed was toothpicks and clay, and see what they do, you know, what happens there. Let's see what else. Well, like one of the teachers that I work with, a kindergarten teacher, she introduced board games to her class. And they had like a week where they actually didn't have a regular choice time. They just played board games. And she had a whole variety of board games. And then after that week, she had a board game center, but she also had a challenge to them. And the challenge was, can you create your own board games? And I think I have on one of my blog posts, I have a whole thing about the board games that her kids created. And so they make up their rules, and they have, and I would save like old the boards from old games that the pieces are missing, and like old Candyland or something like that, and just cover it with white paper, so we had a stack of them so children could make their own game. And sometimes it would be based on something like, I read Mr. Popper's Penguins to them, and they made a Mr. Popper's Penguin board game, a Mrs. Wishy-Washy board game. One year, kids made a Wishy-Washy board game. And so they would have all the different rules about, what was happening, like if you pick this card, then Mrs. Wishy-Washy fell into the water or something like that, and she had to go back, or, but you have to introduce it slowly. So first, like with Charlene, this teacher, Charlene's class, they learned the structure of playing a game. They learned about playing board games, so they had an understanding of board games. Is it really, I mean, like I remember in my class, I actually have it on a video somewhere of these two boys in my class playing checkers. Okay. And it was so funny watching them play checkers. It was like, okay, I go here, and then I go here. And then he said, yes. And then I go here, and they were making up their own rules, and it was fine. That was good. They were making up the rules, and they were having a good time with it. It's one of these things I have to learn how to do it. I have it on the old video, VH, whatever it's called. And it would be nice to be able to figure out how I could keep those things in some way. I'm trying to think what else I have here. Let's see. Surveys, doing surveys. The kids love doing surveys, like you do it as a whole class, and then you open it up to them. Should we have a survey center? What do you guys think? What would we need if we had a survey center? What kind of materials would you need? Can we think of some good survey questions? What are some possible survey questions that you might have? You may think of some new ones when you're at the center, but let's kind of brainstorm and see if we could think of some survey questions. And then they go around to all the different centers and ask the kids, and then they're doing tally marks and all that. And depending upon the age of your kids, and like for the kindergarten, it pretty much didn't go beyond doing the survey and then reading it back to the class, 12 children like vanilla ice cream, blah, blah, blah. But when my first graders did it, then they were actually making a graph to show what, the raw materials was. So it was different with the different age groups.
With our class, we do surveys all the time, and it's good because we're K through 12th grade. And so we would have our second graders go over to the high school and actually survey the high schoolers. And it was a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah. They love that. Right.
Yeah.
In my classroom this week, it's so funny that you say it. I had like one of my more rambunctious, I guess, children who I just adore so much. He was like, I have a paper. I need to ask everybody, does your name have an M in it? And I said, well, that sounds like you have a research question. How about it during choice time? I'll give you a clipboard and you can go around and ask people this. And he had forgotten about it. And I said, hey, Ryan, I noticed the clipboard over there with, your survey where you were going to ask people about their name. And he was like, oh yeah, I didn't have to finish it. And he went around it. The first thing he went over to somebody, does your name have an M in it? Okay. And he drew circles. It was very interesting, the way that he was collecting his data. But it'd be fun to revisit it with him. But I was surprised how internalized it was for children too, to kind of survey one another too.
Right. And Alora, what are some things going on in your class? What's happening with your kids?
We started with very few choice time centers just to introduce things. And last week we introduced new ones like sensory table, water table, music, and math. And we've been doing a lot of sensory table this week. And iPads too. And they really do enjoy I've noticed that with the new tables, they fight a lot because they want to go to the sensory table, all of them at the same time. But on the other hand, I've realized that they're starting to negotiate things with their friends.
And
So like,
examples, yeah.
do this for a little while and then tell me when you're done, you know, and they're 4 years old. So I think that's a big
That's a
deal.
big
So
deal, that is, right. So
yes,
when
definitely.
when you say a sensory table, can you say some more about what you mean by that?
Yes, we have this week we did salt dough. Miss Majo, was it salt dough? Sí, no, eh? Yeah, salt dough. So that's like it's salt, flour, and water, and it makes like a Play-Doh. And yes, and what we did was just a white salt dough, and they had to mix colors. So we put food coloring in it, and then they had to mix it so the colors would new colors would come out. So we started with like the basic colors, and then red, yellow, and blue, and then they mixed each one with the colors, and new colors came out. So we're not only learning like sensory stuff, but we're also doing colors at the same time.
Right, right.
Yeah. So that's been fun. Introducing new tables has been interesting.
Yeah, I asked you about the sensory thing because you like in my head, like just about everything that they do is sensory.
Yes.
So
I think it's a nice way of saying a table where we get really dirty.
dirty table.
Yeah, the get dirty table, because the salt dough has been very dirty, but we're having fun with it, so it's okay.
Right. Like a mud table, right?
Exactly.
Right. And Wanda, tell me what's going on in when you're a class.
I'm with her, so I'm living the same as
You all
Anna.
live together. The three of you are in one room. Wow. How many
No,
people-
it's
The four of
just
us.
it's me and Miss Wanda, and it's Majo and Miss Eddie. So it's 2 rooms, 2 teachers.
Right. So, okay. So what's going on in your room, Marie?
Oh, well,
To me?
we love Choice Time, honestly. Oh, was it me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Sorry. So yeah, we love Choice Time. We have been playing the restaurant. So Miss Eddie found these little coins, like pennies and lots of coins. So she gave it to them. We gave them to them, so they're like kind of trading pizza and for money and like that. So they have been buying things and playing the store.
Right.
And so that was the most fun thing. We have also been building on water. And I have been telling them, like, if you build a high tower, let's see how it goes. Let's see if it falls in the water or what happens if you build a tall tower. So it has been very fun. We have been playing with money, and they are 4 years old. So sometimes I hear them saying like, "Oh my God, that's too expensive." And so it has been very fun. We have also played the school, and that has been amazing. I love playing school. And yeah, it was very fun. It has been very fun. We have been learning a lot of vocabulary. I don't know, I have noticed that my students have been understanding more instructions and more words, and I don't know, I feel like they understand more things when we have read aloud, or when we watch stories, or when I don't know, even when I just talk to them. So it has been great.
Because they've been
Mhm.
doing things, in other words, right?
Exactly. Like, I mean, like most of my students speak Spanish, but my AA and I speak English during choice time, and most part of the day. So it has been very interesting in terms of language skills.
Yeah, that's interesting. You should be writing down so you'll forget things. So you write down what you're observing. Jean,
That's
what
true.
about you? What's happening with you?
I don't have a class of my own because my job is primarily like coaching other teachers and rolling out new curriculum and things like that. Subbing a lot right now. but today I had written to you about doing some things with blocks. And I haven't been able to roll that out with the 3 kindergarten classes. We had a fire in our school last summer. And so we had to order completely all new materials. And 3 of my kindergartens, the blocks just came in a
Wow.
couple weeks ago, but we don't have a place to put them.
It's-
And I was gonna give them like a big laundry basket to put them in. And then after all the block talk, decided that we really needed to order shelves before
Yes,
we rolled
yes.
it out.
Right.
But in one of the classes that I subbed in today, there weren't plans left for me. So I took one of the smaller boxes of blocks and brought it in, and it was it's a special ed class. There were only 5 students in there, and they have quite a few behaviors where we have to call for support very often. So I was a little bit leery to bring in blocks when they haven't had them before, but we introduced the blocks and they played with them for almost an hour
Yeah.
before we need, you could see their attention wavering. But because it was a brand new box, I was able to take them out one at a time. And we talked about the blocks and we talked about what we might do with them and split them up amongst the kids. And they were doing really well, building things and
That's very exciting. That's quite exciting.
seeing if they could copy each other's
Yeah. Uh-huh.
buildings and things. So it was really pretty productive.
Yeah, you should try to document when these things happen.
Mhm.
If you have a camera, take some pictures to write. To try to. Obviously, you couldn't write things down when you were with the kids, but I mean, you could take pictures and then write something down afterwards.
Or do it afterwards. Yeah.
So it sounds like good things are happening. Erica, what about you? What's happening in your class? I think you're muted. You have to unmute.
Sorry, I'm super sick right now. I have pharyngitis. I'm so sorry, but I'm
Sorry.
with Miss Majo, with Miss Maria Jose, and like she said, we practice a lot of vocab in selling stuff and buying stuff with the kids using these new coins and money that we have. We do a lot of building center, car center, sensory, like Miss Anna told you. And well, we use a lot of English right now. That's, I think, our purpose right now, like the language acquisition, and I don't know what else to say right now.
No,
Sorry.
that sounds really good. It sounds like a lot of nice stuff is happening. Well, I think that I'm going to make this a shorter time, but I just wanted to say, because some of you weren't here at the beginning, that I think that unless you have questions, unless you have things you want to ask or share, but I thought that we'll meet again on December 13th because I'm going to be away, but then I thought to start up again at the end of February for people who want to, and we'll kind of focus a little bit on the Vivian Gusson Paley books. I think I sent you the list, right? I think when I emailed you, I sent you the list, but I'll send it again in any case. But I think you will love those books. You will absolutely, especially with the younger kids in particular. But you will just absolutely love them. But
Did you say we would focus on one of those books in particular, or would you
I
just
think
recommend
we
like jumping in and getting them all? And
well, I think we should start with Wally's stories. Okay, so
Wally
that's
stories.
the one to get first. I don't have that one either. I have to get that one. But that was her first book. I didn't realize that was her first book until Patsy mentioned it the last time. Patsy Cooper mentioned it. It was actually very interesting for me to hear Patsy talk. Like, I thought it was, and to hear Ron talking with her, to see what he's doing in his class and for her to respond to it. And The last meeting I found so interesting, particularly interesting. But anyway, I thought that would be a really good, good way to start. I mean, and it's like a jumping off, I mean, we don't spend the whole time talking about this book, all right? But it's a nice jump off point for other things, Is there anything anybody else wanted to share with us at all? Any thoughts or anything at all?
I just wanted to underscore was something that you said earlier, Renee, about starting small and the importance of like impact of just not feeling like you have to be everything in order to, don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, like all those small impacts are important. That's what I've been doing, like where I am now. I said, well, what are the things that are important to me? I'm not going to have children making elevators right now, but if I can make choice time rich and interesting, and I can connect to these children and be curious about what they're thinking about, then that's the work that is interesting to me right now. That's the work that's important. It doesn't have to be everything yet,
Right. I mean, if you
And I'd like to kind of add to that is that learning how to just let them be, that has been very difficult for me. I have a tendency to always want to be involved and kind of guide them. And I've just noticed, after, all of our conversations, that the most learning comes when they discover on their own, and then when they asking questions, allowing them to understand on their own terms. That has been super helpful for me in my classroom.
Right. Sometimes you just have to maybe repeat something that they say.
Yeah, right.
You hear it back.
Yeah.
They hear it back, and that's all you need to do, and it gets it going, so I'm glad that this has been a good experience for you, because it has been for me. And I will see you take notes, pick pictures up in the Google share, let's see what's happening in that messy Play-Doh table. I would love to see it. I never thought about doing, I mean, we did Play-Doh every single week, my classmate Play-Doh, but I never thought of doing it in the table that was the sand table, in that table. And that, I think that's very interesting. I'd love to see pictures of that. So share that with us. Anyway, I will see you when I get back from London. Okay. Well, you don't all celebrate Thanksgiving, but have a nice week ahead.
Have
Thank
safe
you.
travels. Have a safe
You
trip.
too. Have a wonderful
Have
trip.
fun. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
You too. Bye. What?